Imagine a quiet evening drive, a decorated United States Army general in his car, an exemplary figure, a man who had served his country with honor. His uniform, his medals, his achievements, none of it seemed to matter at that moment. The flashing red and blue lights appeared in his rearview mirror, and his vehicle came to a stop on a stretch of road he had traveled many times before. What happened next would shake the very foundation of trust between the people and those sworn to protect them. Without explanation, the general was ordered out of his car. Handcuffs clicked around his wrists, his dignity stripped away in full view of the cameras. His crime? Not one written in law, but one written into a system that had failed countless others before him. But this time, it wasn't just another statistic. This wasn't a story that could be buried in reports and forgotten headlines. No, the man wronged that evening was someone whose voice would not be silenced. His arrest, captured on tape, ignited an outcry that resonated across the nation, a moment so raw, so visceral, it demanded change. In this video, we'll uncover the full story of what happened that night and the movement that was born from it. Through exclusive footage, first-hand accounts, and the testimony of the general himself, we'll explore how one act of injustice became a catalyst for a national reckoning. Stay with us as we delve into the story that began with flashing lights, but ended with a spotlight shining on the dark truths of a system under scrutiny. As we reflect on this real-life story, subscribe and don't forget to turn on the notification bell for more daily stories that need to be heard. Hit that subscribe button, and let us hear from you in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Now let's continue. General James Caldwell was the epitome of honor and discipline, a decorated leader who had earned the respect of his peers and the admiration of those he led. His military career was nothing short of exemplary, marked by countless acts of bravery on battlefields far from home. But beyond the uniform, Caldwell was a family man, a devoted husband to Linda and a proud father of two. He had spent decades serving his country, believing in the ideals of freedom and justice. Riverton was supposed to be a peaceful retreat, a small town where he and Linda could enjoy the quieter moments of life. On that particular day, Caldwell had no reason to think anything out of the ordinary would happen. He ran a quick errand, dressed casually, driving his modest sedan. It was, by all accounts, just another day. But for Officer Greg Mitchell, a newly transferred patrolman, something about Caldwell caught his attention. A car driving slightly under the speed limit. A driver who, in Mitchell's words, didn't look like he belonged. It was a split-second decision. Mitchell activated his lights and signaled Caldwell to pull over. Caldwell compiled without hesitation, lowering his window, offering a calm and polite greeting. But as seconds turned to minutes, the tone of the stop shifted. Mitchell requested Caldwell to step out of the car. When Caldwell asked why, the response was curt, routine procedure. What came next would change Caldwell's life forever. Handcuffs pressed against the car. Accusations that didn't add up. A crowd began to gather, some recording the incident on their phones, their murmurs growing louder with each passing moment. This wasn't just a traffic stop anymore, it was something far more unsettling. And for General Caldwell, it was a moment he never thought he would experience in the country he had fought so hard to protect. Who was Officer Mitchell? Why did he make the decisions he did that day? And how did this single moment become a rallying cry for change? We'll take you step by step through the events of that day, uncovering the details that reveal just how easily an ordinary day can unravel into something extraordinary. The stop escalated quickly. General Caldwell, calm but visibly confused, asked Officer Mitchell what he had done wrong. Mitchell's response was vague, citing suspicions that Caldwell's car resembled one involved in a nearby robbery. Caldwell explained he had just come from the local grocery store and offered his ID, but Mitchell seemed uninterested. Instead, he asked Caldwell to step out of the vehicle. What happened next was caught on a bystander's smartphone. I do hope you have subscribed already, as it is about to get really interesting. The footage shows Caldwell, a tall, imposing figure, stepping out of his car slowly, his hands raised. Within moments, Mitchell instructed him to turn around, pulled out his handcuffs, and restrained him against the car. The murmurs from the gathering crowd turned into audible objections. People shouted, "What's he done?" and "Why are you arresting him?" Despite Caldwell's calm demeanor, Mitchell appeared tense, almost defensive, as if trying to justify his actions to the onlookers. When Caldwell questioned the arrest, Mitchell responded tersely, "You fit the description of a suspect." The smartphone footage didn't stop rolling, capturing the stunned disbelief on Caldwell's face as Mitchell placed him in the back of the patrol car. Witnesses say Caldwell's wife, Linda, arrived shortly after, visibly distressed, pleading with Mitchell to reconsider. But her words fell on deaf ears. Body camera footage from Officer Mitchell later revealed another layer to the encounter. It showed Mitchell making the stop based on a hunch rather than concrete evidence. Caldwell's demeanor throughout remained calm, even as he repeatedly stated, "This is a mistake." The arrest didn't hold for long. Caldwell was released hours later without charges after investigators confirmed he had no connection to the crime. But the damage was done. News of the incident spread quickly, and the smartphone video went viral, sparking outrage across the country. How could a man with such a distinguished record be treated this way in the country he served? Now, the question wasn't just about this single arrest. It was about the assumptions that led to it, the policies that enabled it, and the broader implications for justice in America. We'll break down the footage, analyze the statements from both Caldwell and Mitchell, and uncover the chain of events that turned a routine traffic stop into a flashpoint for national debate with tension and disbelief was captured on a bystander's smartphone. We'll explore the footage and statements from both Caldwell and Mitchell, shedding light on the moment that ignited the controversy. The Riverton Police Department found itself in the eye of a storm. The video of the arrest spread like wildfire, forcing the department to announce an internal investigation within days. For a community long divided by tensions, this was more than just an inquiry. It was a test of whether accountability could ever prevail. Leading the investigation was Sergeant Angela Price, a seasoned officer with a reputation for her no-nonsense approach, and Chief Daniels, a man determined to salvage the credibility of his department. Both knew the stakes were higher than ever. The general story wasn't just about one night. It was about decades of mistrust, systemic failures, and lives unjustly altered. The investigation began with the dashcam footage, grainy, but clear enough to reveal troubling inconsistencies. The officers involved claimed they had reason to suspect the general of illegal activity, but as Price and her team combed through the evidence, those reasons unraveled. Witness accounts painted a starkly different picture. One witness, a local shopkeeper who had unknowingly filmed the arrest from her store window, described the general as calm, compliant, contrasting sharply with the aggressive demeanor of the arresting officers. Then came the records. Price's team uncovered patterns buried in routine traffic stops, patterns that revealed a disturbing reality. Over the past 2 years, Black drivers in Riverton were stopped at rates nearly triple those of white drivers. Similarities between these cases and the general's were chilling. Age, profession, and social standing made no difference. The color of their skin seemed to be the only common thread. As the evidence mounted, the walls around the department began to close in. Officers previously silent came forward, some anonymously, others boldly, revealing internal biases and unwritten practices that had gone unchecked for years. But as Price delved deeper, resistance grew stronger. Tensions within the department boiled over, and cracks began to form even among the investigators themselves. Chief Daniels, once resolute, faced backlash from his own officers, many of whom viewed the investigation as a betrayal. What Price uncovered would shock even the most jaded among them. This wasn't just one officer's decision or one isolated incident. It was part of a deeply ingrained culture, one that thrived in the shadows, until the general's arrest brought it into the light. Stay with us as we reveal the full scope of what the investigation uncovered and the battles fought to bring those responsible to justice. As the investigation pressed on, all eyes were on General Caldwell. Many expected outrage, calls for swift vengeance, or perhaps even a public condemnation of the officers involved. But Caldwell took a different path, one no one saw coming. Instead of lashing out, he spoke calmly but powerfully. He called for justice, not just for himself, but for every individual who had been silenced by similar encounters. And then, he did something extraordinary. He announced a campaign to reform policing practices, one rooted in unity rather than division. This unexpected move shifted the narrative. Caldwell became more than a victim. He became a leader, a voice for systemic change. And as the campaign gained traction, so did the pressure on the Riverton Police Department. But just when it seemed the investigation had reached its peak, a new piece of evidence surfaced. An anonymous source delivered a folder to Sergeant Price's desk, a folder that would blow the case wide open. Inside were internal memos, emails, and detailed records exposing a troubling practice within the department. Officer Mitchell, who had arrested Caldwell that night, wasn't acting alone. These documents revealed coordinated efforts to target specific demographics, with officers encouraged to meet quotas through disproportionate stops of Black and minority drivers. And then, the twist no one expected. Officer Mitchell, facing mounting evidence, broke his silence. He admitted to following orders, but implicated higher-ups, claiming he was just a cog in a much larger machine. His confession sent shockwaves through the department, turning the investigation from one isolated incident into a full-scale examination of Riverton's law enforcement culture. But even as these revelations came to light, Caldwell's campaign faced its own challenges. Threats, smear attempts, and resistance from powerful figures within the city tried to derail his efforts. Yet, Caldwell stood firm, using each obstacle as fuel to push harder. The deeper the investigation went, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about Riverton. It was a window into a much larger issue plaguing police departments nationwide. As the final pieces of evidence come to light, stay with us to uncover the shocking truth about how one man's fight for dignity exposed a system in desperate need of change. Pieces of evidence that not only exposed Officer Mitchell, but also pointed to systemic issues within the department. The investigation culminated in a moment Riverton would never forget. With overwhelming evidence of misconduct, the city had no choice but to act. Officer Mitchell was stripped of his badge and faced criminal charges for his role in the unlawful arrest. But Mitchell's downfall was only the beginning. The department's leadership faced intense scrutiny, with several high-ranking officers resigning amid allegations of fostering a culture of bias and negligence. For the first time in its history, the Riverton Police Department committed to an independent oversight board, a move pushed through by community advocates and Caldwell's unrelenting campaign for reform. But perhaps the most significant change came not from the police department, but from the people themselves. Caldwell's leadership sparked a movement, one that transcended Riverton. Town halls, policy debates, and public demonstrations spread across the state and beyond, forcing other cities to examine their own practices. Through his efforts, Caldwell helped implement mandatory racial bias training, body camera policies, and transparent review processes for officer misconduct. These reforms, while not perfect, marked a critical step forward in rebuilding trust between law enforcement and the community. For Caldwell, the journey wasn't about vengeance, it was about justice. Standing on the steps of City Hall, he addressed the crowd that had gathered to hear the final verdict. His voice was steady, but his words carried the weight of the countless lives impacted by similar injustices. "This isn't just my fight," he said. "It's ours. This moment isn't about tearing down. It's about building up. Building a system that sees every person for who they are, not for what they look like." Caldwell's resilience turned a personal tragedy into a beacon of hope. His leadership forced an entire community, and eventually a nation, to confront uncomfortable truths. In the end, his story is more than one of injustice. It's a testament to the power of perseverance, courage, and the unwavering belief that even the darkest moments can lead to lasting change. As the dust settles on Riverton, one question remains: how will we, as a society, ensure that this isn't just another moment in history, but the beginning of a movement? On how Caldwell's leadership in this crisis has sparked a broader conversation about racial bias and police accountability. Now, we want to hear from you. What's your take on this case? Do you believe the reforms introduced in Riverton are enough to bring about lasting change, or is there more work to be done? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. We read everyone. If this story moved you, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you won't miss any of our future true crime stories, where we uncover the powerful stories that demand to be told. And don't stop here. Dive into our playlist of similar cases where justice and truth collide, and see how other communities have fought to overcome systemic challenges. Together, we can keep these conversations alive. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.